Starbucks, which is now the largest coffee chain in the world. Every content creator, every employee probably holds a cup like this before going to work. But did you know that in 2010, Starbucks had to shut down 900 of their stores around the world, and they almost had to shut the whole company down? If you want to know how did that happen, make sure you stick around, because I will be telling you about the time Starbucks almost had to shut their business down. The whole story started when these three guys, Jerry Baldwin, Gordon Boker, and Zeph Siegel, these three guys had one thing in common, which is their love for coffee. So they decided to open up a coffee house. Back then, it was called a coffee house because the idea of selling coffee as a drink did not exist. There was only one way to sell coffee, which is selling coffee beans. So they went on with the idea and decided to open a shop to sell coffee beans. Even though they had a vision they wanted to follow, but they had no experience in coffee beans whatsoever. So they met a guy named Pete, and Pete had his own coffee house where he sells coffee beans. He had no problem sharing his coffee roasting experience with the guys. The three guys took enough experience from Pete. He showed them how to roast coffee beans and how to find the best quality coffee beans in the world and how to import it into America. In 1971, once they gathered enough experience and knowledge, they were looking for a suitable name for their shop. Jerry and Gordon were big fans of books, so they decided to name their shop after a character in a book, and that character name was Starbucks. Once they had the right name, they opened up the first Starbucks coffee house. They based their business model on selling high-quality coffee beans and coffee roasting equipment. And that's when Pete became the initial supplier of coffee beans to Starbucks. At first, they didn't have much sales, but Jerry had the idea of importing special equipment from Holland in order to create a new roasting techniques. By the early 1980s, Starbucks had opened 4 stores that stood out from the competitors and their top quality fresh roasted coffees. And by the end of the year, Siegel decided to leave Starbucks and pursue another career. Things were going well for Starbucks, but everything changed when a guy named Howard, who worked as a marketer in Starbucks, went to a trip to Italy, and he had the biggest idea for the future of Starbucks. When he was in Italy, he was impressed with the country's cafes. He was impressed with the idea of selling espresso and cappuccinos instead of selling his customers coffee beans. And he thought of doing something similar in Starbucks. However, Baldwin and Boker were not excited about Howard's idea, as they did not want Starbucks to deviate from its traditional model of business. Howard tried convincing his business partners of the idea, but they weren't fond of it and thought that no one would buy a cup of coffee and they would rather make their own cup of coffee at home. This makes me think of how different things were back then, where buying a cup of coffee used to be seen as wasting money. Howard believed in his idea, and that's why he chose to leave Starbucks in 1985 and started his own coffee chain, which was an immediate success, quickly expanding into multiple cities. After a couple of years, Starbucks sales started going down really fast. The idea of selling coffee beans expanded, and they had a lot of competition. When they couldn't compete anymore, they decided to sell Starbucks, and Howard was the first one to purchase the company. He turned Starbucks into a cafe the same way he used to see it in Italy. He opened the first Starbucks with his own business model in 1992. He made sure he changed everything in the store. He changed the furniture to make it a suitable place for people to sit for long periods of time. Basically, he transformed Starbucks to the Starbucks we know now. And as expected, Starbucks was a huge success. Soon became the largest coffee house chain in the world. After 5 years, Starbucks had a presence in dozens of countries around the globe and operated over 30,000 stores, and in 2003 they added food to their menu, and that also helped with growing their business. However, every business takes a hit every once in a while. Sometimes they survive the hit and come back from it, and sometimes they don't. This is exactly what happened to Starbucks in 2008. During the economic slowdown, customers were looking for cheaper options to get their coffee. People complained that Starbucks coffee was way more expensive than other domestic coffee shops in America. However, Starbucks didn't do anything about that, and they continued to sell expensive coffee. By the end of 2008, people noticed a huge decrease in the coffee quality. Starbucks was not selling quality coffee anymore, and they were more expensive, which made people stop buying from Starbucks and go to other stores. In the same year, McDonald's started selling cheap coffee. They have recognized that people needed cheap coffee, and that's what they gave them. By the end of 2008, Starbucks have lost most of their customers and had to make changes to save the company. By the end of 2008, Jim Donald, who was the CEO of Starbucks back then, was forced to shut down 600 shops that were not making any profit. And in 2009, he closed another 300 shops and laid off 6,700 employees. Howard, who was the original founder of Starbucks, came back and realized that the reason why Starbucks was not making any profit was because the rapid and fast expansion of the stores around the world. He realized he only cared about opening as many shops as he could without giving each and every store the right foundation. He decided to make a surprise visit to a Starbucks shop in California where none of the employees knew who he was. He realized the coffee doesn't taste as good as it used to be, the equipments were old, and there was no relationship whatsoever between the customers and the employees. That's when he realized the issue Starbucks is facing was way bigger than what he thought. In February 2008, Starbucks closed 7,100 US stores for 31 hours to retrain its baristas on how to make the perfect espresso. He gathered all the employees in this football court for 3 days, and the company have lost more than $6 million a day. He taught them how to treat customers once they come into Starbucks and how to make a friendly environment for every Starbucks customer. Howard didn't stop there. He asked Starbucks customers to email him directly and tell him what they don't like about Starbucks. He took every email seriously and made as many changes as he could. By 2009, Starbucks was able to build a new brand name for itself. They managed to build the best environment for coffee lovers, and now Starbucks became an essential place to be if you are a coffee lover. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like. If you want me to make these types of videos more often, please tell me in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon.